Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey James, all right?
Matty, nice to
You're
see
right.
you again as always. And we've
Yes,
got
sir.
Nathaniel. Is that what we're calling you, Nathaniel?
Uh, yeah, Nathaniel's fine.
For the purposes of this, we'll call you like Nat FPV or something. So that's what I've got you down in my WhatsApp is just Nat FPV. So yeah, mate. Look, thank you so much for coming to join us. We've obviously been chatting a little bit this week on LinkedIn. I think you connected with me, and then I saw what you did, and I was instantly intrigued and started firing questions at you. So I apologise if you felt like I was digging a bit.
Uh,
But look, appreciate you coming on, mate. And I thought it'd be a really interesting topic to talk about, and obviously everyone will see why in a minute. So, it'd be great if we could just understand a bit about you as a person, and what you do. Obviously, you've done some combat stuff in Ukraine, which is really, really interesting, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to be interested in hearing about. So, look, it'd be great just to hear about your story, how you got into it, and kind of what your plan is moving forwards, and how you ended up flying drones in Ukraine.
yeah, no worries, mate. Well, from the start, I suppose, I'm Nathaniel. I'm English volunteer. Nobody forced me to go to Ukraine. And prior to going, my background was in the British Army Reserve and just politics at university, essentially. So I don't have any links to Ukraine outside of what I've done. I don't have any family from Ukraine. Never even been to Ukraine prior to any of this. And, well, never really been to any other country other than the UK prior to this. So, I went a bit in the deep end. And, prior to going, the only real drone experience I had was a month or so before going. I just kind of got a Mavic 3 and just punted around a bit just to check it wasn't like something which was like horribly wrong for me.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, the Mavics are probably a pretty good place to start, if I'm honest. Although I would say most people start with something slightly smaller than a Mavic because they're obviously still quite expensive. And so,
Yeah.
so you kind of figured out that actually this is probably something I can do. So, and how did you then kind of transition from there?
So this has been something I've been thinking about since 2022. With what I was doing at university, this was Russia and Ukraine specifically was something I was always quite invested in. So when the full-scale war kind of kicked off, I've been passionate about it, and when you sat around talking about it, it's one thing, but essentially, I'm 25, so I'm quite young. Single, no kids, and I finished university and I had some military experience. So in my mind, it was very much, I've said that I care. I've got all this spare time and nothing else to, keep me from going. So I'd feel like a bit of a dickhead if I did just kind of shift off and do something after all that talking,
Mate, fair play.
Amazing.
I think a lot of people obviously feel really strongly about, not just the Ukraine war, but other things in life, and then just end up doing nothing about it, which is probably 99.9% of people in the world. So, mate, fair play to you for going over there. So, and was it when you kind of thought about going over there to fly? Obviously, you mentioned that you've done a little bit of flying. Did you fully invest yourself in like, I now want to go and fly drones? Or it was just like, was that the only opportunity you had to go over there and do something meaningful? Like, how did that work out?
So there's a lot of things foreigners can do to help Ukraine in the country. Obviously, you can do like civilian volunteering where you'll be in like Lviv or Kiev and you'll be doing all sorts of things, really kind of basic stuff. A lot of it quite mundane. You won't be paid, but you're also not in any real danger.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be stuff like making shrapnel or camo nets, maybe some like cookhouse stuff or talking to people, so there's a lot of very easy things you can do. Up from there, I'd say there's medical stuff you can do. So you could train Ukraine. Let's say, you're a paramedic or something. You can go to Ukraine and teach soldiers how to try and save their lives and their mates' lives. And then from there, if you're still wanting to do medical stuff, you could actually go to the front line as a volunteer. The big one's called hospitalers. So it's like you go to the front line in, say, an ambulance, and you evacuate injured blokes. And there's a lot of risk to that, and you're also not getting paid. So that's certainly something people can do. I don't have any medical experience past me, really. But then you go to the military side. As a foreigner to contract with the Ukrainian army, there's kind of 3 main areas you can go. You can do infantry. I would not recommend.
No, definitely not.
Back in 2022, that was more or less the only way other than medical volunteering, because back then drones wasn't as much of a thing. But 2023 onwards, it's kind of proliferated with drones, and that comes with foreigners as well. So I don't have any medical experience. Infantry is not a particularly smart move, and that just leaves drones, really. And as I've said, I didn't have too much experience of it elsewise, but as a kid, I've always, played a lot of video games. There's always this propaganda about, if you can play video games, you can blow up Russians in 12 hours.
Oh my God.
That's an interesting saying. Wow.
That's
definitely interesting. So you're saying infantry, obviously, you want to stay away from. Is it because are Russia doing the same as what Ukraine are, and you guys? Are they both heavily sort of invested in drones, just like you guys?
Yeah, very much. So Ukraine was the first mover on this. It kind of spawned from the blokes who had recently been conscripted or volunteered right in the starting weeks of it. So one story I read was a dad and his son had a Mavic drone up north of Kiev when they were kind of rushing straight towards it. And they're like, why don't we fly it and then send coordinates of Russians to people? And then on the other side, I think it was Magyar, they had a dude who did FPV racing, and they're like, yo, we could just stick a bomb on this.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
it just kind of went from there. But yeah, the Russians have definitely caught up. Which side's better, I'm not entirely sure, but they've got a lot of innovations on their own. So they came up with fibre optic drones, for instance.
I did wonder who created those, if it was, you guys or Russia, because I've seen them all over the landscape now.
Yeah, well, they're part of the landscape now.
Yep.
Yeah, and then specifically on the infantry side, infantry in 2022 and infantry in 2026 is quite different as a result of the drones, but it's very attritional. Being sent to infantry is seen as a punishment in a lot of parts of Ukraine.
Okay.
So the way they kind of conscript people is, it's like, if you join voluntarily, you can pick between quite a few different units, different jobs. While if they have to come to you, they're usually going to put you in infantry. So yeah, you don't want to go there.
Okay.
So I guess as like a foreigner, you've almost got like, I don't want to say the luxury of choosing, but you can go over and be like, well, if I'm not flying drones, I don't want to be involved, kind of thing, because I suppose in one sense being infantry is way more dangerous. Like then, obviously being a drone operator, you can be some distance away from the action in a sense, and I might be totally wrong about that, so please feel free to correct me, but my understanding or my assumption of it has always been that that's probably quite a safe option in terms of being involved in a war, if there is such a thing.
No.
Okay.
So it very much depends on what system of drone you're using, but FPV, both fibre and radio, you can be the first line of defense on the front line. So you're meant to have infantry between you and the Russians, but that's not always the case. And obviously, if we can reach them with FPVs, they can most likely reach us. Radio Horizon and so on aside. You need to put yourself in a dangerous position in order to be effective. Fixed wing teams, they can be quite far back, but the thing with them is, so drone teams are high priority, like as a target. Like if you had to pick blowing up an FPV team or an infantry team, you'd pick the FPV team every time. It's very much a dangerous thing. From the enemy side and then from your own side as well. Two of my mates have had their own drones blow up on them. And then obviously there's stories of other foreigners, other Ukrainians who have been completely just vaporized by their own drones. So, being a drone operator is very dangerous. I would say infantry is the most dangerous, also because you don't get rotated as much, and you're even closer usually. But there isn't really much safe jobs in the military for a foreigner to do.
Interesting. So they're using relays a lot. So say like you've got a Mavic 3 or a Mavic 4 up ahead to give you sort of intel. Is that how it works, to keep your distance, to make you go further than you normally could?
It depends what you mean. If you mean in terms of reconnaissance, then so everywhere across the front line on both sides is being monitored almost permanently, 24/7. For the reconnaissance side, Mavic's the most common, Mavic thermals too, but both sides have got laser fixed wing drones, larger kind of drones, so Vampires on the Ukrainian side. And then obviously you've got other kind of intelligence assets like, radio direction or electronic warfare, all sorts of stuff like that. On the relay side, if you mean more in terms of like a repeater, so both sides do this, where you've usually just got a big antenna like on a tripod or kind of up a tree somewhere. While a lot of teams also will use matrice with a repeater on it. Because you can fit a bigger one on it than you could a Mavic. I'm pretty sure it's the only thing matrices are really used for now, because they're quite expensive and big.
They might be quite a big target, right? Because they're quite large in the sky.
It's more about the cost, because so Vampires, for instance, Baba Yaga, they're huge. They're huge. Like agricultural kind of drone huge. And they're used as to drop mines on people.
Wow.
Like
that's crazy. I didn't know that happened.
Several mines. Yeah. And and they're a lot more valuable than matrices, obviously. It's just in terms of what you can do with each platform. There's definitely other things going on to enable SUVs to work how they are.
No, that's cool. There's some surprising stuff in there that I didn't realize. So that's awesome. I want to jump back a little bit more to your story though, and just kind of carry on. Obviously, as someone who didn't really fly drones, when you kind of arrived in Ukraine, what was the process of, I know as a kind of full-time professional FPV drone pilot that it's not something you can just pick up and go, oh, this makes sense, because it takes time to, to figure out how the technology works, and especially if you've not really flown a drone before, like that learning curve's very steep. I came from flying things like Mavics and Minis to FPV, so it kind of made sense to me. And I'd been doing it for a couple of years before that, and then I know how steep the learning curve for FPV was. Even for me, I was like 2 or 3 months in a simulator, then flying in real life, and then before I was probably 6 months before I was competent enough to go and fly commercially. So, how did your journey look in terms of where you started out, and how did you kind of hone your skills as an FPV pilot to where you are now?
So when you join a drone unit, or you end up doing drones, however, there's several different ways you can go about that. So some people will join a drone unit and they will stay at the base. So their whole job could be repairing broken drones or building drones, putting props on drones, charging batteries, that kind of stuff. Then there's like engineers. So, there's a lot of crossover with that, but even on the front line, stuff can go wrong and then people need to do some stuff together. So I kind of decided on pilot, and so you have a level of choice, but it also kind of depends on what the needs are at the moment. A lot of people go towards pilot, almost as the ego thing, and I'm not probably excused from that. So
I'll join you with that.
I'm educated, but I'm not from an engineering or manufacturing background. I did international politics. So I suppose there was almost a level of kind of imposter syndrome when I look at engineering or soldering or something like that, my initial thought was, okay, I'm too stupid for that. Let's do some flying instead. So, it kind of swings both ways in that end. So in terms of how you actually learn flying, there's an ideal and then there's a reality. So nowadays it has improved a tad, but your mileage will vary. So in Ukraine, there's a lot of drone schools, civilian drone schools, where you'll sign up for a month or two and they'll teach you how to do FPV, so fly it, fix it, do long range flight, set up all that sort of stuff, hit targets, all that kind of stuff. You can do it as a civilian as well. So if you're really bored and you've got nothing better to do, you want to go to Ukraine, they can teach you to do that. It's quite cheap too. It's like $500. So that's more of the ideal, and that would involve simulator, kind of theory crafting on the engineering side, getting given some broken drones, having instructors, and then obviously instructors who can speak English.
Yeah.
And then, after that, they can punt you off to some unit and you'll have a nice certificate. That did not happen for me.
Okay. You were just thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, so I turned up to my unit, and what I was told was, okay, you will get sent to this village to train and learn FPV or Maverick. It wasn't certain which way I was going to go at the time, because the unit had both teams, also bombers. So UGV, yeah, there's a lot of ground drone stuff as well. But the idea was you go do the drone training for about 2 months with the unit, then you sign the contract. So the contract is when you start getting paid, and also when you're legally part of the armed forces and you can't just run away.
Right.
In theory. But what instead happened to me is I turned up, sat around in a hangar for a week, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, right, time to sign a contract." And I was like, "Okay," I thought it was the other way around. But I signed a contract, and then I go do basic training, as in like soldier training. I already had like a level of military experience. Like, I'm not like, obviously I'm too young to have been to Afghanistan or Iraq or any of that stuff. And it was quite basic because it was British Army Reserve and there's no money. But yeah, this training was, it's like conscript training in terms of quality. So it's lowest common denominator, as in obese dude in his 50s needs to pass this and they're not allowed to fail.
That's such an analogy. Wow.
Yeah, love that. You should have seen the people I was with.
Wow. Interesting. The people you're with, are they mainly all Ukrainians, or is it a mixture like yourself? Are they from all over the world?
At the basic training, the camp was almost entirely Ukrainian, like 98%, while our particular training company, there was 30 of us, half of us were foreign. In terms of where those foreigners come from, for us anyway, so I'd say quarter British, quarter American, then the rest from all sorts of places.
Yeah.
Everyone could speak English, though. A big thing nowadays, though, is that South American and Mexican foreign volunteers outnumber Westerners now. So, like, Colombians are the most common foreigner in Ukraine, like, to volunteer.
That's a new.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Money.
Right.
Simply.
I thought maybe. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, you know, the story goes anyway. A lot of Western volunteers came here for ideological reasons or main character syndrome reasons or scamming reasons, or they know Ukrainian women are attractive and they've got a passport or some bollocks, you know. You know, not everyone comes to Ukraine for the right reasons.
Yeah, I guess that was early on, wasn't it? When it all started, you had the rush of people signing up. I remember seeing it on the news or whatever online. I don't know if that's still as high of people from the UK coming over.
Well, this is the thing: is it's kind of, it's, you know, you still get people coming, like even today, for various reasons. And you've still got a lot of people coming for the wrong reasons, but they didn't really recruit Spanish speakers at the start. So in order to come, you had to speak English, Russian, or Ukrainian. So there was that block to it. But also from speaking around less thing. So if you properly get paid in the Ukrainian military, which is, you know, quite an ordeal, you know, you just won't get paid a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, so in theory, the money in Ukraine for going to combat can be around like $3,000-4,000 a month, which, you know, to a Westerner, you know, you might as well work at like McDonald's or something. But you know, if you're a Colombian, for instance,
it's good. It's very good.
There's a lot of money. So yeah, there's a lot more South American volunteers running around. Speaking to recruiters as well. There's a lot, like, and then this is the thing, is you won't hear about them as much because they're on like the Spanish language side of the internet. So no, coming back around. So after doing this basic training, which was interesting because it was during the winter and we lived in a tent. Yeah, that was fun.
I bet that was cold.
Fun.
Oh my goodness!
Like -10 in the day, -15, and then
oh my god,
wind chill and all that fun stuff. So that was nice. But you know, so even from this point, I should have done the drone training first, which, you know, positives and negatives. This way, I started getting paid earlier, but the other way around, if you find out you suck at drones or you want to run away because you think you're about to die, you can do that a lot easier. But yeah, so we come back from the basic training, no drone experience, and we just kind of sit around for a week or two, like, and then some bloke just kind of turns up and he's like, "We need people for Mavic. Who wants to go?" And you know, I go like this, and then my soon-to-be de facto husband, Buckfast is his call sign. A Glaswegian, if you can tell. He puts his hand up too, and so just two foreigners, we just kind of get whisked away to this unit, like a specific part of the unit, and we get told, "Okay, you are going to learn Mavic," and we're like, "Okay, cool." And we get in this guy's car and we drive somewhere. We speak to, people speak about us in front of us because we can't speak Ukrainian.
Yeah.
And we just kind of get vaguely told things. It's quite worrying the first time you're going through it because they're just kind of looking at you and they're sizing you up. You don't know if you're just about to get sent to your death immediately.
Right.
But they did it, which was nice. But no, we sit in their safe house and they're like, okay, you shall learn. Right, okay, cool. And they seem quite surprised that we don't actually know anything about drones. These guys didn't really know much about drones either. They were just infantry dudes who just kind of did drones probably so they didn't have to be infantry anymore.
Okay.
It can be very amateurish. But yeah, then they're like, okay, we're going to send you back now because you don't know any drones. Please learn drones. Thank you. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And we get dumped in an abandoned village a week or so later. So this village used to have a drone school in it. And then, I don't know if you know history too well, but one of the reasons why the Luftwaffe got kind of beaten so badly in the war was they sent all of their combat-hardened instructors to the front line instead of teaching people. So institutional experience has kind of died away. The Ukrainians sent all the instructors to the front line, other than two who were essentially just kind of fuck-ups. They just kind of sat there. And we got left in an abandoned village with a pile of broken FPVs and some other crap. And they're like, yeah, figure it out. So, all right, cheers.
Oh my God.
I guess that's the nature, though, when you're in a war. It's you've just got to go with it and learn it as you go along. I guess most of it was donated, right? Because we know a lot of people that used to donate drones to Ukraine. I don't know if they still do as much, but I'm sure that's probably what it was.
On the donating side, it's very much still a thing, but it's more so inside Ukraine. Because, drones you can donate from the West, you're talking Mavic, really.
Yeah.
And anything else, probably not very good, frankly. Side tangent, but when I was combat active, we did get given some random drones from some Western dude. He was like, yo, test my drone. And it didn't even lift.
Brilliant.
Test my drone.
You get that. You get that.
I bet it was one of those like Temu drones, right?
Well, this is the thing. It was really big. I want to say it was like a 12-inch or something.
Wow,
but
God, right, okay.
It was all 3D printed, and it wasn't. It was really weird. Imagine like a standard kind of X pattern, but then like fill it out. Like, I don't know, it was really strange.
I know what you mean. So it's almost like, is it like each arm is almost like a mesh type 3D print? Is that what you mean?
No, so it's literally just crap 3D print, like just really basic 3D printing. And then it's like, almost like it's webbed, like, like duck feet.
Okay, yeah.
So, but the thing is this guy was telling us like, it can lift like 10 kilos. And it couldn't even lift itself with the 6S3 battery on it.
Oh my God.
That's wild.
So this pile of broken drones, they were all Ukrainian/Chinese FPVs of very poor make, hence why they were left broken and for training. But so also the internet was really intermittent in this place, so learning to do this yourself with no instructors in the middle of winter was fun. So essentially my mate Bugfast, he had like a background in like kind of cabling and that kind of stuff.
Right,
he's a very expert bodge jobber. That's
exactly what you need for FPV.
That's pretty much what it is, honestly.
Yeah,
especially when you live in an abandoned village. I mean, abandoned village, like
Call of Duty style abandoned village sort of thing.
Yeah,
Chernobyl.
and like electricity was questionable, among other things. But yeah, so he was essentially like, right, I'm gonna learn the engineering side, and I was kind of going towards trying to learn it, but as I said, I had a bit of imposter syndrome about it. So they also gave us gaming laptops, which was actually very nice of them. They had just a stack of gaming laptops so they had a drone school, and then they just abandoned it and left all the stuff there, essentially, and then just put us there. So I did lift off for
probably lift off.
Yeah, lift off's a video game. So yeah, that's a good one.
You know, probably about 12-ish hours worth. For your information, the closest FPV model in liftoff to what we would use. So obviously the things we use are really heavy, fat, and slow. I never totally tested the differences because I just got told to use that one. Metal Danny, apparently Metal Danny is the best for that.
Okay. Yeah. Try that out. I've got quite a few in liftoff. Yep. And just on the simulator side, is that kind of the main one that you use, or has it developed and have you found better ones? Like for me, I've always sworn by Velocidrone for being the most realistic in terms of physics. I find a lot of sims are quite floaty and the gravity isn't quite right. So I found for me, like Velocidrone's probably the most realistic, but it's the most basic in terms of graphics and stuff. So is there a range of sims that you've used, or is it mainly just been liftoff because you felt kind of comfortable with that?
No, you're right. So one of my mates who came to Ukraine 20, but he was an FPV racer at uni, he swore by Velocidrone for the same reason you just have. Okay. For whatever reason, liftoff is the one everyone gets told to use. Right. And you're right, it is too floaty, which is why people go for the Metal Danny drone because it's the least floaty, apparently. But it's more of a just to figure out how to fly. And, I suppose it is slightly more engaging because it looks nicer and so on. But
true.
There's obviously also military simulators to actually learn how to fly missions and stuff. So everyone kind of starts on liftoff. Everyone has a key for it as well, it seems. Legal or not, it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
I've got it on my phone ready to whack onto any kind of laptop needed. But no, so once you're kind of able to fly on anything, you usually then just kind of get put into flying for real. But before I move on, so military simulators, the main one is something called Aubrey. You can't get access to it unless you're Ukrainian military affiliated, but
right.
It's very much like how you're meant to do it in real life. So it's like you're launching it, you've got an RPG attached to it, you're going to hit a car or something. They've got an interceptor drone variant recently as well, which is being sold to the Go, to my understanding, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But you've got quite a lot of other ones once you get on Steam. So there's one called FPV Kamikaze Simulator.
Yeah, I shared that with James the other day. I was like, time to get ready. This is what we're going to use.
I was watching for the trailer for that, and I was like, this is fucking wild.
It's real. It looks very real.
I used that one because one of the Ukrainian dudes told me to, but it's actually Russian. So, it works. It does the job. It's slightly suspect to use in Ukraine because there's hearsay that it can track people or so on.
Interesting.
But all that stuff aside, it's decent. It works. There's a lot of reasons why it's not super great in terms of it doesn't really show you too much interference, and it's just kind of dudes stationary, so on. But you go into flying quite quickly. Oh, well, this is the thing. If you've got working drones, you do. It took us some time to get some working drones together, and then it's winter, so we didn't have a ground station either. So it was very much okay, fly for 10 minutes, run back inside next to the fire, and unfreeze yourself. But you almost exclusively use 7 and 10 inches, no tiny drones.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially for long range missions and stuff like that. They're obviously way more efficient than 5 inches or 3 inches, and they're not going to be as prone to things like wind or elements or whatever. I guess my next question for you is: at this point, it sounds like you were just kind of thrown into it without really much of an idea of how it was going to happen. So, were you kind of sat in this abandoned village going, "Fucking hell, what is going on? Like, is this really what I've signed up for?" Did you ever go like, "Yeah, I'm totally not into this"? Like, what was your kind of thought process at that point?
It was an interesting ride. The basic training itself was kind of crazy. So it was 2 months long, and I joined quite well from a Western mind, quite a good unit. Well, if you think British Army, you'll cause lots of arguments when you talk about this. But for instance, you've got support services training, then you have like infantry training, then paratroopers, Ranger Edge Gurkhas, so on, so on, so on. But I joined an airborne unit, and before I joined, I'm from Colchester, which is where the parachute regiment in the UK is based. So I always kind of thought, I might not be good enough for this. I might not be fit enough, because I don't know if you ever met any paratroopers, but yeah, they can shift. And I'm not the biggest bloke, I can run, I can hold my own, but I never really thought myself as like a meathead who can do like 1 million press ups. But going to this basic training, in the 2 months, we went on 1 run and 1 march with weight.
Oh my God.
In 2 months. And we did morning PT training for the first 2 weeks until the instructors couldn't be bothered anymore.
Wow.
So it definitely wasn't Band of Brothers. It was just run.
No.
Done.
Yeah, it was, so coming from that, our expectations weren't the greatest. Obviously, the basic training did teach us a good amount of some stuff, but more in terms of how Ukrainians do things. And there was a lot of shooting, but it wasn't very scientific. So, if you go on a shooting range with the British Army, it's very much 5 rounds in your own time, and then, you fire. And then they will, like, see where you actually hit, and then they'll probably say, yeah, you sucked. Where it was in Ukraine, it was, okay, you shoot 15 rounds. We shoot 15 rounds. Like, good job.
That's wild.
Does it sound like a satire when it's actually real life?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, your mileage may vary. Obviously, some units have some very good training. So Azov and 3AB are known for having some very good training. But yeah, as I said, this is conscript training.
Yeah.
So, when I got to this abandoned village and then got abandoned, we were quite sad about that. But in the same way, it wasn't super surprising. It was very Lord of the Flies-esque as well, because we got there quite early. But so we were at this place for a few months, just left to our own devices. But what would happen over the weeks is more and more foreigners would get dumped at this place. And so this abandoned village suddenly became a habited village where there was like 2 houses with like Ukrainian villagers, one of whom made a lot of moonshine and was very well endowed with business. But all the other abandoned houses suddenly became unabandoned by foreigners of all stripes. Loads of ground drone people, Mavics, some FPV, but this was the thing. It was just freaking nuts. There was there was people trying to kind of maintain some level of, direction or things to do. And then there are others who are just playing video games the whole time or getting pissed or fighting or setting campfires, making a barbecue. We made a barbecue. That was great. But the problem is because you had nobody forcing people to do stuff.
Yeah.
We had one guy who one day the Ukrainians came for him and was like, great job, you're finally ready. And he was like, yes, I am ready. And they were like, okay, so what can you do? And I was like, and, you know, so he spent like 2 months doing nothing but playing video games. And he got taken to Pokrovsk and was basically just sat around, and they had to learn on the job because he just didn't do anything. Well, on the other hand, you know, we finally got some drones working, and you know, Buckfast was doing the fixing and trying to figure out stuff, and I was flying as much as I could. You know, on top of the other kind of stuff I had. I was running my own shop at one point. I was getting uniform and helmets and stuff from the UK. And getting it because we get issued terrible gear, and I was like selling it to like the other foreigners and stuff.
Oh wow, nice.
It was a very strange place, but it also stopped being winter. Seriously, it was like 1 week it was -10, -20. The next day it's 10 degrees. And you're like, I guess it's not snowing anymore.
Okay.
You know, which meant we could be outside longer, and it was a lot nicer. But you know, there's only so much you can do when you've only got 7-inch drones and your ground station got taken. Like, so we fixed the ground station with an antenna and everything, and we were really happy because we could finally do long-ish range flights. and then some Ukrainians turned up, and they're like, great, we are taking your ground station because we are making another drone school. And we're like,
oh, that's wild.
Yeah, and also our drones, because we didn't really know too much about what we were doing at the time. Our FPVs, we had like 50-meter range for a lot of the time.
And were these all analog? Were they all analog at that point? Were they?
All analog, no digital. We managed to get some slightly better ones going where we only had, say, more like 500 meters. But in hindsight, I'm pretty sure because we were just cobbling together stuff, I think we had like VTXs with the wrong frequency antennas on them and so on. Because obviously we have a wide range of frequencies both for control and video in Ukraine because we don't care about legalities. So yeah, when they nicked this ground station, we were just kind of, it was just kind of flying around. I got so bored that I got my web in, like with all my pouches, and I filled it with some lithium-ion batteries, my TX12, my Sky Zone, and I attached an FPV to the back of me, and I went looking around for pheasants, and so I would spot pheasants on this field, and I'd set my drone up and I'd launch it at them.
Wow. I see pheasants every day here. That's great.
Yeah, well, because back in the UK at uni, I lived with a posh boy who would go shooting.
That's it.
And he'd come back with those pheasants and stuff, and I would just kind of butcher them and get free food.
That's fair.
So, abandoned village, and, food can be questionable at times. I was like, right, I'm going to bloody hit a pheasant. I'm going to hit a pheasant. But, so we were using analog. And, the resolution must have been like, 240 by 480. And spotting pheasants on the brown field, basically, they had to be moving. They had to be a male pheasant, and the sun had to hit them for me to actually spot them.
Right.
And then when I would actually go to hit them, one or two things would happen. I would either try and hit it like it's going to stay still, or I'd try and hit it like it's about to fly away. And every bloody time it would pick the other thing.
Yeah, all the time. That's wild, man. That's crazy.
They're smart. It's like a really weird version of Duck Hunt.
Yeah, it was really bloody annoying.
Too smart, to be honest. They're quite dumb on the road.
I mean, do you know that's probably a really good way to like train yourself at hitting targets, though, because small targets and like any, it's like hitting gaps, right? If you're an FPV racer or something, obviously that precision is really important when it comes to flying. So having those moving targets is obviously a great way to kind of train your skills, I suppose. So you were probably really helping yourself with that. That boredom was obviously quite good.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I went and did that stuff. I was also like one of 2 guys in the whole village who would go on runs. Like physical capability as a drone dude, it's like it seems optional by a lot of people. But this is the thing: is everyone's left to their own devices. So you've very much got a mixed bag of people who are doing everything they can to get better. Mm-hmm. People who are just trying to survive. People who are just there for a piss up.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh god, yeah, it was an interesting time. And the only reason we got taken out of that village was because some important foreigner turned up, saw it, complained to someone, and then within a day we got taken out of this village to get dumped into a different village, and then sat there with Ukrainians.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. That's amazing. So, yeah, obviously it's a crazy journey up until that point. So, thanks for sharing that. I think the thing I'd love to talk about with you is a bit of the technology. Now, I know you probably can't go loads into some stuff, but we obviously fly, DJI made VTXs and stuff like that a lot of the time for digital, where we're recording for commercial purposes, like doing fly-throughs or chasing racing cars or whatever. So that could be GoPros and stuff, where I guess like the quality of video feed is probably not as important for you guys. So has it always been analog? Have you ever kind of gone into using digital VTXs or video systems, or has it always been analog? How does that work with fiber optics? Sorry, there's so many questions here, but is the fiber optic, does that control the video feed and the control feed? How does that all work?
Okay, so first bit. For FPV, I have literally never seen any sort of digital VTX. Wow. So everything's analog. Another important point I think a lot of people seem to forget is on actual operations, most teams do not use goggles. We use our ground stations, which are like massive laptops.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Those videos I sent you, they'll kind of illustrate why.
Mm-hmm.
But simply, it's very much so you've got your team around you, and they're like, right, look, there he is there, hit him there. And you're like, I don't know what you want about. So it's a lot better for that.
Right.
It's also kind of better on your eyes, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's, analog looking like crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's very much because FPVs are almost always a one-way ticket. You've got bomber FPVs, which they're quite rare. I've only ever seen a few of them. I've never used one because we'd use Mavics or Vampires or something for that side of it. But yeah, so DJI stuff, we only really use Mavics, Matrices. For FPV, I've never seen any DJI stuff, really. You've got a lot of Ukrainian companies, and you've got a lot of Chinese companies. There are some Western companies who, chuck things towards us for various reasons. But overwhelming majority is Ukrainian built with a mix of Ukrainian and Chinese parts. They are trying to make China-free drones for the same reasons the Americans are, because the Chinese are getting more unreliable with supplying, because obviously the Russians and Ukrainians are buying from the same source, and China kind of prefers Russia.
Well, I mean, we're kind of seeing those shortages in equipment as well. It's everything we fly is basically Chinese made, whether it's VTXs or ESCs or whatever. They're all kind of Chinese manufactured, and I've noticed probably over the past couple of years, it's so hard to get hold of stuff now. Like, if you want like an 04 air unit from DJI or a Speedy B, anything from there, is you have to order it off AliExpress, which then comes directly from China. So it's quite hard to find stuff in stock. So I'm guessing, those kind of pitfalls are probably affecting you guys as well. I imagine, we see a lot of that here.
I'd say it's probably easier for us because we, for instance, with say VTXs, you're limited to certain frequencies. We can fly wherever the hell we want.
Yeah.
Practicalities aside. So we've got a wider net, and then obviously there are contracts for this supply, and then obviously there's a lot of stuff being built in Ukraine, supplied in Ukraine. Obviously there's always bottlenecks, say brushless motors and so on, or the rare earths, if you want to talk about that. But on the technology side, so almost no digital stuff,
And is there a particular is there a particular reason why you're not using digital stuff? Is it because it's easily hackable, or is it just the fact that they're really expensive?
Obviously more expensive. That goes without saying. So obviously the high video quality you get with FPVs, it's not super important, not as much as you'd expect, because how it's meant to go is Mavic or other reconnaissance element spots target. They give you target coordinates of the target, and you've also got a live stream of them watching the target.
Right.
And obviously, we use Mavic Pro, Mavic Thermal, and so it's very much you already know where you're going. Obviously, there are times where we fly the FPV on its own and we just float around looking for stuff, but we're not getting it for any kind of cinematic stuff, propaganda aside. So I'd very much say it's mostly on the side of expense, economy of scale, and that the video quality isn't really needed as much, which is the same reason why, for instance, I'm assuming you guys almost exclusively use 5.8 for your videos.
Yeah.
Or 2.4, but maybe 5.8.
It's normally 5.8.
5.8 for your video. So, for instance, most of the VTXs I've used is what we call X-band, which is 4.9 to 5.2, which obviously then again has not as good video quality because it's lower, but it also has better range and obstacle getting around ability. And I suppose, obviously, if digital is a lot more expensive, I wouldn't be surprised if analog has a wider market for all this kind of stuff, and it would be easier to make a new kind of VTX. So, and then obviously everyone's been using analog. So if we just switch to digital, let's say digital becomes as cheap as analog tomorrow, and there's no bottlenecks, you're going to have to change all sorts of crap.
Sure. Yeah. Which makes sense. And going back to your point of, using FPV as reconnaissance, I've done a couple of search and rescue operations in my kind of career as a FPV pilot, which basically involve flying around forests looking for people because they're in particular situations. And it's amazing how much stuff you can miss because you're just so in the moment with the flying. You're always kind of you obviously use your peripherals when you're flying FPV, but you're almost tunnel zoned. So, using stuff like Mavics for reconnaissance makes sense. And then, like you said, you're just flying straight to the target. You know exactly where it is. And that kind of makes sense. So,
another important point. Thermals, they're everywhere.
I was going to mention that. Like, how far can they dig into, like if there's a bunker, like an outdoor sort of like a station that the enemy's sitting in? Can you see like through that? You can tell there's heat coming from the outside.
So once again, the Mavics at night time, they're all thermals on both sides. Nighttime is easily the most dangerous time to be outside. It's a complete opposite of what people would assume because it's dark, so you can hide. But thing is, thermals, it's like cheating. Seriously. We did a test once where we had some of our guys sitting in a tree line, in backlines, and we searched for them. It was like turning kind of dusk. So at one point it was bright enough for just normal camera to try and find them. And, it took us a good 5-10 minutes to find all of them. And, they were on like the borders of the tree line. But when it got dark enough and we launched the thermal, it was like, oh, there.
Just like that.
It's,
wow.
Yeah. It's crazy. Because, well, thermals are really cheap and everywhere. And then obviously the Mavic thermals are really good. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So the problem is, if you're an infantry dude, is if you're just walking around, if there's a thermal drone looking in your direction, they'll spot you. Vehicles, even easier to spot.
Yeah.
Heat signatures, just in general. So, a bunker which has people in it, obviously it depends on the season as well.
Yeah.
The thing is about a drone team is you've got a diesel generator, you've got a battery, you've got people inside, so it's going to have a lot of heat signature coming from it. It's even worse in the winter, obviously. And another thing is footsteps show up as a different color in snow.
Right.
You might have seen this. People running around with like thermal cloaks, like trying to hide some thermal cameras.
No,
I can't say I've seen that. Yeah.
Right.
They're quite common. They're getting more common, but you've got some really like kind of Scooby-Doo kind of like Looney Tunes kind of shit going on as well. So, for instance, in a Western like sniper team, they could have a thermal cloak which cost them like $20,000.
Wow.
It just looks like Gore-Tex, like a Gore-Tex kind of sheet.
Okay.
But you're meant to leave it outside so it can kind of average to like outdoor temperature. And then you wear that and you're a lot harder to spot. But even then, so I think there's a bit of an audio issue.
I was getting a bit of interference, but don't worry, it's all good. I can ease fine.
All right.
You was the same.
The problem is obviously different parts of the ground at night time are different temperatures. So even if you've got like a perfect thermal cloak, and then you run across a road, it's like, oh look, there's a man-sized thermal thing going across. Or we'll see your boots, we'll see your socks,
Wow.
Crazy. Wow.
Or the Russians, because they don't really care about their dudes as much.
Wow.
Wow.
So you get guys who have been given tents, and so they cut leg holes at the bottom of the tents. Yeah. And sometimes not even eye holes. So they're wearing a tent and they're trying to cross a field wearing a tent, but they can't see. Because first off, it's nighttime, and secondly, they might not have eye holes.
That's insane.
And what they have is they've got a radio around their neck, and they've got a Russian drone above them, and they're trying to like move them like chess pieces.
Wow.
But the problem
bonkers,
is,
man,
it's a massive tent, and you're going to get stuck and stuff. And I've seen videos of them in daytime because it's turned day, and now there's just a dude in their tent, like stuck in a tree or something.
It sounds fucking ridiculous. Like,
it is ridiculous.
Real life, and it's real war. Like, and it almost sounds like a comedy, and it's kind of like hard to not laugh because of what it is.
Well, you do laugh.
I mean, you kind of have to, right? Yeah.
I could probably dig up a video of one of them, but it would, it'd take me a while. Or, for instance, you'll have ones who they manage to sneak past all the drones and they get really close to the Ukrainian trench. And I heard a story of one who fell asleep outside the Ukrainian trench.
Oh, God.
The Ukrainians wake up, they look outside, and it's like, oh, there's a pink tent in the middle of our field. I wonder what that is.
Oh no!
Oh my God, that's wild.
So what happened after that? I mean, yeah. I mean, there's so many questions. I mean, like, would you take him as prisoner of war? Would it just be instantly shot? I mean, yeah, it's just crazy to think what could happen in that sort of situation.
Yeah, I think we all know the answer to that question, basically. So,
yeah.
That's mad. That's mental. The other thing I really want to understand about you is obviously, you know, we've talked about FPV drones and how you got into it. I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of the stuff we see online about war is how taxing it can be on people and how they struggle with their mental health and PTSD. So, you know, and something for me, you know, flying FPV drones for me is almost quite like an intimate thing, like, because you're, you know, you guys aren't necessarily using goggles, but when I'm flying, I am locked in, like, you know, and as a pilot, you probably have the same kind of thing. So, you know, how do you, you know, what are you thinking the moment, like, you're on a mission and, you know that you're ultimately going to go down there and, you know, blow something up, you know, whether that be, you know, a vehicle or a person, or, you know, I don't want to go too much into the kind of mechanics of that, but, you know, how does your, you know, where's your headspace in those kind of situations? And then, you know, how do you cope with that, I suppose? And how do you know, what do you do for downtime to kind of take yourself out of those zones? And is it something that you're almost, because it's on a screen, is it a bit like a video game? You know, is there that kind of disassociation, or are you aware that this is really real?
Okay. So it very much depends on what's going on during the day. So some days, every time we launch, 2-3 minutes in, we can lose all of our drones because of electronic warfare, Ukrainian or Russian, or we've got a technical problem, or they've sent us the wrong ELRS pack, or, you know, all sorts of crap could happen, which means you could spend the entire day or several days launching drones and none of them get anywhere. And then you get a message from the dude like, here are the coordinates, blow up this guy. And you just get annoyed because you're like, I can't get there. And all I'm doing is wasting drones and munitions, and it's just really annoying, you know. It's horribly infuriating. But let's say, you know, a normal, you know, all right-ish day, you know, some of your drones will get hit by electronic warfare, but you'll be able to get through either eventually or by being a good pilot, because you can fly over electronic warfare. If that makes sense, like you glide over it. You know, let's say we've got to the target, like the general postcode, and you know where the target is, like exactly. You can see him on the Mavic. You know, you're more kind of like when obviously, because I've been the pilot and I've also sat next to other people doing it. When you are the pilot, it's very locked in. Like, well, for me anyway, you're very much, it's a laser focus, like a kind of clarity I've never really seen elsewhere. But you're not really thinking in moral terms, because it's obviously, you know, I won't get into the politics too much, but it's very cut and dry. This isn't Afghanistan. This is big country has tried to invade smaller country because they don't want their language, culture, or people to be a separate thing and have their own destiny. You know, so this is a dude who has come here to stop this country from being a thing. While whether they've been conscripted or they're doing it for money, most people these days are doing it for money, because you get a lot of money for joining the Russian military these days, like $20,000 sign-up bonus. And imagine you live in some bumfuck village in some bit Siberia, you know, that's big money. And they also don't tell you how easily we can blow you up, you know.
No, they won't. I saw a documentary showing how, like, most of the men have just disappeared from a complete village in Russia because, you know, there's propaganda adverts to say, come on over. And now all the women are like, well, there's no men here anymore. And that'd be multiple villages. It's actually mental. Yeah.
And then obviously a lot of them can see through the propaganda, or just don't care either way, which is a lot of people don't care either way. But they're just like, I need the money, you know? But yeah, so, you know, if it's a car, or if it's a dude or a position or an antenna. You know, it's very much if you hit it, you know, everyone's like very happy. You know, obviously, a lot of teams, you know, they've done it so much they don't care too much. So my friend Carl, he says he only cares when they blow up buildings because he likes blowing up buildings because it looks cool. Yeah, because
spoken like a true FPV pilot.
Yeah.
Men's.
Well, yeah, because we'll fly
Amazing.
like a thermal-bearing bomb into it. It's just a
Gotcha.
big wad of C4, so there's no shrapnel or shape charge. It's just a massive. So what that does essentially is when you put it inside an enclosed area, it changes the pressure completely. So it'll collapse buildings and you would turn people into paste.
Right.
But outside, if a thermal-bearing bomb went off near you and you're outside, and it wasn't like directly on your face or something, it is going to knock you over and you're going to get the mother of all headaches and traumatic brain injury, but it's probably not going to kill you. But yeah, he just really likes seeing buildings blow up. But for me personally, if I'm hitting someone or my pilot is hitting someone, it's very much a good job. Like almost like you scored a goal kind of thing, because you're thinking, this dude can't hurt me or any other Ukrainian now. Or for instance, when someone would spot a Russian drone team, you're very much thinking it's your opposite number. You need to fuck this guy up. So like when you're hitting their position or blowing their antenna up, you're thinking, you know, fuck you. But you're also thinking how annoying it would be for you if that happened. Because when our antenna gets blown up, when it did, or when it would get burnt down or melted because they would set fire to our tree line, you know, there's nothing we can do. We're just sat there now. We can't fly. We got to wait for another one to turn up, and then they blow up again. So you're very much thinking in terms of what measurable effect this will have. You know, even more so if you blow up a tank or a BMP or something. And if you miss, it's very much you're annoyed. And then, you know, there's always a silent kind of lame game going on, I would say. Obviously, different teams have it differently. But, you know, you're thinking, was it pilot error? Was it bad luck? Was the other guy really good at dodging? Was there too much electronic warfare, jamming, radio horizon? Or when a dud happens, that's really annoying. You know, when you hit it and then it doesn't blow up.
Seen that before.
Yeah.
That's something. I was going to say, I've seen actually quite a few videos on YouTube where you have armored tank units from Russia just going through fields, and it seems like you guys, the Ukrainians, are just there and ready with like what looks like 100 FPV drones just constantly coming and coming and coming, and the Russians don't even know you're there. So like, how many FPV drones do you have at like one time on like a major assault, like by your side?
Depends on the area, and it depends on, obviously, have they spent the past 2 weeks blowing up drones and drone teams, or are they doing this because a commander got yelled at?
Gotcha.
Right.
You know, like where I was, it was very static for like years, but the Russians would attack every few weeks or month or so, just almost like they had like a contractual obligation to do a suicide attack every now and then.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
But you know, they're doing it in a way. It's called reconnaissance by force a lot of the time, where they're doing it in order to see what you do in response and where you're coming from.
Right.
So this is the thing. Nobody truly knows how many drones we have or would use, because you've always got things in reserve, or maybe a team is rotating, or they've moved, or they're dead, you know, and they're getting replaced soon. You know, so, you know, and there's always going to be a time where you don't have enough drones for what you want to do, or you've got shitloads of drones and you're just kind of sending them just for the heck of it. Like, there are times where we were sat around just really bored because there weren't enough targets. So we would spam our commander guy, like, let's do safari. which is what we would call just flying around randomly without a target. And, sometimes you'd hit something with that, but a lot of times you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if I did know how many drones we would have at any particular time, there's only so much I would know as one dude, and then how much I would say about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think it was really interesting how you were talking about, your mindset when you're doing a mission do you know what? It's probably not that dissimilar from when, Matt, we're chasing racing cars around a racetrack. There's very much like a goal and you're totally hyper-focused on doing that thing. And then
vision.
And then once you've done it, you've got that kind of feeling of accomplishment. Like, we just pulled off this killer shot. In your sense, it's kind of different, but I suppose the mindset's almost the same. And when you started, was your mindset, because obviously there would have been a first time that you'd gone on a mission, has that mindset developed over time? I imagine the first time you did it was a totally different experience for you, like mentally.
I'd say what changes more, other than just experience and just knowledge of your area and how your drones work, how your team work, obviously that always kind of evolves. And in terms of mindset, I think what mainly changed for me was understanding of the danger. The first time I went out, we were getting bombed pretty hard. I wasn't really too bothered because I was just kind of sat there like, okay, there's explosions, but so what? But the longer you're out there and the more times you go back, the more understanding you have of how close they were or what type of thing they're hitting you with, because there's all sorts of crap they can hit you with, and some of it doesn't really do anything, and others it's like it hits you, you're just done, So in terms of mindset, I'd say it's mostly not how you're flying or how you feel when you're flying. It's more of when you just sat there day to day, you're thinking in terms of, okay, it's a bit dodgy now, or it's a lot more dodgy than it was a few months ago,
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting seeing how, the mindset is, because it's kind of, I'm surprised that your mindset is kind of the way it is. It's more transactional than anything else, which is, I think when you're looking at it from the outside, and I suppose all the things that are associated with war, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but you're probably not seeing your buddies get blown up by landmines, that sort of thing, which I think really scars people. And again, I might be wrong in totally assuming that, but it's different mindset to what I was expecting for sure.
Well, on the landmine side, one of my friends doesn't have any legs.
Right.
I was in a completely different part of the country when it happened, but they were a drone team, and the gruesome side of it definitely does happen. It's just, it's very much the luck of the draw, you could be on the front for a year straight and nothing happens to you, or you can be there for 10 minutes and you're already dead. That's just kind of how it goes. So one of my teammates, they took some shrapnel in a prior operation before I was there. And, obviously they've got a different perception of what going outside is to me. So they would always say, once you've actually been hit or your team has been hit, you're going to move a lot faster because, when we were rookies, it's, when you're outside, you're always told, be as fast as possible or else you're going to die. But until you've actually almost died or you've heard it outside, you change. So the first time I heard an FPV scream, like near me, it was probably a friendly FPV in hindsight. But, I was out there launching the drone, taking the safety off, arming the bomb, putting the battery on. And you hear the scream, you're like, nope, and you just run the fuck away. And then after that, going outside is always kind of different because, you've had a closer taste of what could actually happen. So I suppose a kind of, what's the word? Not like not like an innocence, because you know what you're signing up for, but almost an air of invincibility kind of goes away. Like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, but like it could happen. You know.
And I guess you've had situations where things have probably been, pretty touch and go, where you've thought, "Fuck me, this could be it." We're in a situation that's, potentially lethal.
Indeed.
And I guess you have enough of those situations to learn from, and then hopefully not get in those situations again. But I suppose there is an element of luck to it sometimes.
Well, the problem. Well, the thing which I would say most about that is there's only so much you can change about how you do things, because you could be John Rambo, but you're still sat in the same bunker as me.
Yeah.
And your 8-pack and 20 million years of military understanding isn't going to stop a cruise missile from hitting us directly.
Yeah.
So like this is the thing is, obviously, you can move faster, you can be more efficient, you can crash less drones, you can set your position up so it's a bit safer. But all of this is tweaking. It's not like okay, I've done 10 operations now, I am now basically invincible. When you're sat in the car, the driver is the person who's doing pretty much all of it. If the driver crashes, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
sure. And a lot of it's then obviously down to the skill of the pilot who's chasing you, or the AI targeting they've decided to turn on because the EW's crap. Or obviously, you can have your jammer, and then they're flying at a different frequency, and now you're screwed.
Right.
Yep.
Sure.
Sure. And anything can happen. It's totally random.
Yeah, exactly. And how many? I want to say tours. How many times have you been out in Ukraine? Because I think you said you're currently back in the UK right now. And you might be heading back out there soon. So I mean, how many stints have you kind of done out there? And how long have those stints sort of been?
So overall, I've been in Ukraine for a year. So I'm back in the UK now. Obviously, as I started by saying, a lot of my time spent in Ukraine was sat around.
Sure.
There's training you have to do, military and drone side, but there's also a lot of sat around waiting for Soviet bureaucrat to sign something and then give to a different bureaucrat.
Sure.
So, this is one of the difficult things. It's very much a slot machine with Ukraine. It's like, you can join a union, and they're like, right, you're going to the front immediately. Or you can get to another union, and they're like, right, you're not going for several months. It's very, it can be really infuriating as a result of that, because you can just, you can be ready to roll and have to sit on your hands because of some various bollocks going on.
Yeah.
But no, so I was combat operational mainly in the summery autumn part of last year.
Okay.
Prior to that, in the winter and spring, that was training and sat around slowly wanting to headbutt a wall.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
That's interesting.
And
I was going to
go on, Matt. No, you go, Matt. You go.
So a lot of people over here or around the world, they'll watch FPV clips for entertainment. And now you're being back in the UK. Do you find yourself going on these YouTube channels at all, having a look? Like, do you ever see their comments and go, what are they saying? Like, just people not knowing really what it all means?
So there's several different parts to that. If something particularly impressive happens, I'll probably look at it. So, for instance, they've recently hit a Ka-52 attack helicopter. That's very impressive. Or, do you know what Operation Spiderweb was?
Nope.
No.
Do you remember last year when the Ukrainians hit a Russian airbase with loads of strategic bombers?
Yeah.
Yep.
From inside Russia. as in they launched from inside Russia. That's like crazy. That's like
amazing.
Stuff like that. When I saw that was like awestruck. That was great. But in terms of just normal compilations of FPVs hitting people, there's not really much you really get out of that. If I see like videos about an assault in my old area, I'll look at that almost like an interested. How much has it changed? Is it in the same area? Has it moved a bit? I'd say recently. So you've been seeing a lot of drone videos from Iranian or Iranian affiliated pilots hitting American stuff.
That's correct.
For me, I'm mainly just annoyed at how much they suck.
I was just about to ask.
Well, I could do a better job, right?
I've just about to ask if you turn into a bit of an FPV snob like the rest of us, and you kind of see someone you're flying, it's like, oh, that guy's flying in fucking full. He's not flying in acro.
Well, yeah, because they're always flying in angle mode. And
angle. Yeah, okay, there you go. You see it in the corner, don't you? And I was actually surprised when I saw it. But I mean, they want to get to the target, right? They probably have no training, I guess.
Yeah, well,
they need to get it there.
Which obviously just shows they're just some bloke who's just been like, right, have fun hitting this black hawk and don't miss or else your family's in trouble. It's seeing it, obviously, on one end you're thinking, how the hell did the Americans not see this coming? And then, how have they not learned? And then from the other side, how have all these Iranian groups, who have spent all this time sending drones to Russia to send to Ukraine, how have they not trained a lot of these dudes? And obviously a lot of them are Iranian affiliated. It's just some random group who's just sat in Lebanon or something. Yeah. But it's like, they're so crap that you wonder how much damage an actual pilot could do. It's a good point. It's just like, you watch the video and it's just some dude arsing around somewhere for several minutes fighting the drone more than anything else. But there's, he's got zero real interference because a lot of them are fibre optic drones. But even with that, there's no one trying to shoot them down or some super billion-dollar American thing to magic it away. But, despite all that, they still hit the target,
That's crazy as well. They're expensive targets and cheap drones as well. That's just mental.
That's crazy. And then just with fiber optics, like, is that for the control feed and the video feed? Or how does that work? Like, and I suppose the other question I have with that is, obviously with FPV you're moving around quite a bit. So if, for instance, the fiber optic gets caught in one of the props, what kind of impact does that have? Is that mission over? Switch to a new drone or?
Okay. So I'll start by saying I've never personally flown fiber optic.
Okay.
So some teams will only do radio, some will only do fiber, some do a bit both. There's a bottleneck in production around fiber optic spool because most of it comes from China and they're fighting with the Russians to buy it and the price is like skyrocketing as a result. But I've got friends who fly fiber and I've read into it, looked into it a good bit because there's a good chance I'll end up flying it. So the fiber optic does the control and the video. It's a spool, so it's usually underneath the drone. So how they've set up is battery on top, spool underneath, and then munition underneath the spool. You've got different setups. I did read today that Ukrainians are testing a fiber optic and radio hybrid for that reason in case it breaks. But the range on these spools is crazy, like 20 kilometer, 30 kilometer, 40 kilometer.
That's mental.
They have very good video quality, control quality, because they can't get jammed, so it's very clear. And also you can go inside buildings with a radio feed. If there's a dude in the building, it's more like can I see the dude, yes or no? Is there a window or something I can kind of fly into, just hit the room he's in and hope if he gets unlucky? Or is there a door? Can I blow up the door and then the kind of next dude fly through that hole? With a fibre optic, you can go inside and like get them.
That's mega.
In terms of how they break, one of my friends is actually a glass scientist, and he was testing something. He says that the quality of fibre optic cable he's finding is quite improving. You do fly it differently. So a radio FPV for long range, you're flying quite high up for several reasons. With a fibre optic, from my friend who flies them and still flies them, they fly very low, like almost at the ground level. Reason being is when you're flying, you're thinking about laying a cable. So if you're really high up, you've got a lot of slack, and that can just go anywhere. If you're quite low, you're thinking a lot more about where you're placing it. So you are flying differently. You're not like slamming your throttle and like turning all over the place.
Sure.
But the cable is a lot stronger than people think. You can lay it over the top of trees. You can go through grass, fence, all sorts of crap. Because the thing is you're laying the cable behind you. So it's not like super taut, like ready to yank. Because once it's been laid, unless something moves, like a dude comes and cuts it, or a tree falls over or some crap, a lot of the time it's not really going to cut too much. You get people saying like, oh, I'll just cut the cable, but that's it. Recently as well, the Ukrainians have started taking them out with lasers. I saw some videos on that. I'm not totally sure how it works, but it seems like they burn the cable. So ambush drones are very scary. You get radio and fibre optic ambush drones where they fly up to like a road or a position. They land and they disarm and they just sit there. And obviously, they've only got the camera going, so they draw quite, barely any power, so they can just sit there for ages. And they'll see a dude come past or a car come past with that arm, and then within a few seconds they've hit the dude.
Oof, just like that.
That's really scary, man.
It's always going to change, isn't it? As well, it's going to upgrade and just get
worse. That's like the worst version of a mine, because it's sort of sat there laying in wait, but the fact is it can take off and come and find you is just wow, that's crazy.
There is downsides to it, because what if no one comes? Then you've got a team sat there staring at their ground station waiting for something to happen when they could be doing something else. Or if the link quality is really bad and now they're stuck on this drone and they can't like get another one going, and they've just got to wait for the battery to die or someone to come and shoot it if they're lucky, but ambush drones are probably the scariest thing you can encounter, because
that sounds mad.
This is the thing is, as you said earlier, that a lot of people outside of Ukraine don't totally understand how drones are used or what you're meant to do against them. So, speaking to people, because I've spoken to a few startups or random dudes, they'll ask me, do you do this? And I'm like, no. Or would you use this? Because, a lot of them, they're trying to sell something or make make something which would help, but obviously they're invested in their solution in the same way. But think of it from the perspective of a soldier. Let's say there's an FPV coming at you and you've got some sort of way to maybe shoot it down. So you've got a shotgun or a rifle or a net gun or some kind of trophy system, or you've got like you've got an interceptor drone on the gun or something. Any of these things could fail for a million different reasons. And you spent all this time trying to shoot it down when you could have ducked or ran away or dodged or ran further away from your team so you don't all get blown up. So a lot of it's like people are trying to make solutions, but even if I had that solution, I might not want to use it. And then because then for instance, a lot of like the AI-based interceptor drones, where it's like, pattern recognition, where they're like, oh yeah, my Raspberry Pi AI thinks that's a drone, but now it's behind some grass, it's not a drone. So yeah, there's a lot people don't know, and it's strange from my side because, as I said, I've always had a level of imposter syndrome from not being a drone dude prior, not coming from an engineering background, being a international politics monkey, but yeah, and obviously there's Ukrainians who've been doing this since 2022 and know a million different things. In comparison to them, I know fucking nothing. But then I come back here and I look on LinkedIn and someone's posting some absolute just trollop, and I'm, then they've got like 300 likes, and I'm thinking, right, if I comment on that, I want to get so many people hit me up and say, you're an idiot, you don't know what I am. I'm a US Marine who's done like 1 million tours in Afghanistan. And it's like,
it doesn't make any difference, literally.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
You must see a lot of stuff where you're just like, oh, that's so stupid. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
I saw you comment on a post the other day on LinkedIn, and you were sort of just like, just be quiet, man. Like, it's funny. I guess being in that situation gives you like a really kind of cut and dry view on the world, and we all sit here in our lovely realities, and you see how things real work, especially in kind of wartime, which is crazy to think. Mate, it's been an absolute joy talking to you, like genuinely so interesting. And I think one more question from me is, what's next for you? Are you going to come back to the UK and come and join us and start flying through buildings, or are you going to go get back into politics? Like, what's your kind of plan moving forwards once, I don't want to say once the war ends because there's no real time frame for that, but how long do you intend to keep doing this for?
So yeah, currently I'm in the UK. And I'm 25, I'm quite young. I don't have like an industry to fall back on. Like, as I said, I got my master's degree. I left the Army Reserve and I went and did this, So it's not like I can all right, I'm done. Let's go back to my bricklaying job or something. This is my only real career. Proper work experience outside of the reserve, some uni crap, So this is my life now, I
can imagine you've invested it. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people call me very stupid for this, and there's a lot of truth in that. So there's very much an anxiety among a lot of foreigners, especially as well as Ukrainians, of if the war ends tomorrow, what are you going to do? Because everyone wants the war to end, obviously. But then, obviously, people want to end it the right way. You don't want the Russians to win. That's, when a lot of people say, oh, I wish everyone could just have peace, it's like, yeah, on whose terms? And then what stops the Russians from just attacking again? Because they've been doing this since 2014. And they've been attacking other countries prior to that, and they've been fucking with Ukraine for centuries. But, sat in the UK, with my passport, with my experience, British Army, international politics, drone experience, combat experience, I can, there's some stuff I could do. But then again, I also don't have all of these civilian drone qualifications. So upon applying to some drone jobs here, some HR person or some AI looks and like, oh, he doesn't have this civilian drone, sir. I guess he can't fly.
That's all bullshit anyway. To be honest, mate,
is bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, you can literally do those things in 5 minutes, and it's kind of done as long as you've got a grand and that sort of stuff. And I guess there's probably a lot of people who would be happy to introduce you into those things, and certainly we would if you came back here and you decided, look, I want to maybe come and do the drone thing as a full time, look, come and do some stuff with us. We'd love to have you on normal shoots, and you can kind of see that side of things. It might be really interesting for you to see, you know, how we operate FPV drones as opposed to you guys and the technology that we're using and all that sort of thing. You know, we'd love to have you come out on shoots with us. That'd be awesome.
I'd be really down for that because, simply put, I haven't done any flying in 4 months, and it makes me really sad.
I know.
Because, well, you know, I'm sat in Wales, just, you know, just almost twitching from like withdrawal with stuff. Because, you know, in Ukraine, when I was bored off my tits, you know, I'd just go fly around or something. Yeah. Yeah, anything would, you know, because, well, while I'm sat here, as I said, I've been applying to stuff, and my direction is more towards defense industry, military training, that sort of area.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, training suits you, I think, from what you've said.
Yeah.
You know, you're like the first wave of this sort of generational warfare, so why not train the next and the next? You know,
this is it. I'm sure there's like some really, you know, some value add that you can definitely, you know, empower on other people. In that sense, you know, I think there's plenty of drone tech companies who are now looking into warfare, especially in the UK. You know, I think Edinburgh Drone Company is one of them. You know, they do a lot of drone tech for, you know, in the warfare space. So I'm sure there's definitely a skill and value that you could add to a lot of companies. So I think, you know, although you probably haven't put a huge amount of thought into it, but when you do finally decide to, you know, stop going over to the Ukraine, I don't think it's a dead end for you in any way, shape or form. I think the experience that you've got is 1 in a million, essentially, you know. And we always joke about it, right, Matt? We always say, oh, if World War III comes along, we'll know what we'll be doing. But, you know, I don't know if my skills would translate over to there or whether I could even do it. And, you know, I consider myself to be a pretty good FPV pilot, but I've got no clue as to whether that would translate in a real world situation, you know? So,
well, yeah, this was the thing, is I have applied to some places in the UK and they've ghosted me, including an Edinburgh Drone Company. I sent them an email. I was like, yo, this is who I am. And
whoops.
And even then, you know, I've been to some startups, spoken to some CEOs, and I've been like, you know, you know, would you be interested in hiring me? I've approached them or they've approached me for some other reason. And you either get, oh, we don't have the contract, or, oh, we're only looking for engineers right now. So it's a very weird place where I am, where a lot of civilian drone places aren't having me because I don't have the quals. And then a lot of the military places aren't having me, like the drone defense companies aren't having me because the really big ones, like Stark, you know, big companies, I won't even get past the SIFT on them. And then the smaller startups, SMEs, about them, either don't have the money or are only looking to hire engineers for like £1 million a year or whatever the hell. You know, so it's just like I'm just kind of stuck in this point where even if I decide maybe I don't want to go back to Ukraine, I might have to, unless I want to sit here and work at McDonald's or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect as things develop with the Iranian war, or, you know, inevitably as we get pulled further into it, which I'm sure will happen at some point, or another war of some sort, that's when those sort of skills will become very sought after, when suddenly everyone goes, oh, fuck, we haven't actually got anyone to fly these things. You know, I think it'll be a different story. And, you know, I'm sure that's a whole nother podcast in itself. But, you know, I think your skills will be very well sought after. So, and look, you know, we'd love to stay in contact with you. You know, when you're, you know, after your next tour, you know, please come out and do some stuff with us. We'd love to have you out on shoots. And
definitely,
it's another thing that you can learn. You know, I'm sure your piloting skills are better than probably a lot of other guys out there. So, you know, there's definitely the commercial side of things you could look into if war wasn't, you know, and defense wasn't an area which worked out for you. But, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming to join us. I just, when you connected, I was like, we have to talk to this guy. I mean, he's just going to have some great stories, and, you know, it's been a real joy. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super insightful. Absolutely. Amazing.
Yeah. And,
no worries, mate.
Cool, man. Awesome talking to you. And yeah, we'll end the podcast there. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Lovely. Cheers.